She held her head in her hands, repeatedly murmuring, "What should I do?" For the project to get back on track, some major improvement was clearly needed. It was obvious that finding that solution would become our biggest challenge moving forward. At this rate, not only the project, but also her career could be seriously affected. In that moment, I made up my mind. I had to do something to support her. My name is Daniel. I'm 30 years old. Until now, I had lived a quiet life as an average programmer in my rural hometown, but a job change brought me to the city. To someone like me, who grew up in a peaceful rural hometown nestled in the mountains, the noise of the city was almost deafening. Standing on the train platform, it felt like an endless wave of people was surging toward me. When I boarded the train, I felt as if I was swallowed up in an instant. On the morning of my first day at the office, I woke up while it was still dark. My heart was pounding with a mix of anticipation and anxiety about this new life. The view from my apartment window showed the narrow sky wedged between buildings gradually getting brighter. As I took a shower and slipped into my suit, I told myself, "This is the start of something new. Let's do my best." The moment I stepped into the multi-tenant building where the company was located, my nervousness suddenly spiked. As I passed through reception and got into the elevator, I could clearly feel my heart beating faster. With each floor the elevator ascended, my anxiety climbed as well. When the elevator doors opened, a spacious office spread out before me. The ceiling was high, and the view of the city through the glass-paneled windows was stunning. Rows of desks filled the space, and people were already busy working. I was given a quick orientation by someone from HR and was immediately taken to my assigned department. I was placed in System Division 3. As a major internet company, there were 5 departments dedicated to system development alone. I had previously met the department head, Michael, in an online interview, but he seemed different in person. During the online interview, he had seemed strict, but in person, Michael had a warm smile and a gentle demeanor. After a brief greeting with Michael, I was introduced at the department's morning meeting. I stepped forward, took a deep breath, and introduced myself. "My name is Daniel. I enjoy hiking and camping. I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and I hope we can do our best together." My introduction was met with warm applause from the team. Looking around, I saw friendly smiles here and there. It didn't seem like a bad atmosphere. After Michael showed me to my desk, I received explanations about the necessary documents and systems. In the seat next to mine sat a woman with a radiant smile. Her name tag read Emily. When I said, "I'm Daniel, nice to meet you," she responded with a gentle smile. When she smiled, a cute dimple appeared on her cheek. Her gentle expression and calm demeanor gave me a sense of ease in this new and nerve-wracking environment. The first day is always nerve-wracking, isn't it? I was really confused at first too. "Oh, I'm Emily. I'm originally from the countryside, and I've been here for 3 years now, but I'm still not used to city life." Her words gave me some comfort. I was also from the countryside, still overwhelmed by the noise and pace of this big city. When lunchtime came, Emily asked, "Would you like to have lunch together?" Thanks to Emily reaching out to me on my very first day, I felt like she had saved me. Without her thoughtfulness, I probably would have been even more nervous. As we had lunch together, I got a sense of her personality and her sincere attitude toward work, and the conversation began to flow naturally. Through our conversation, I also learned that she was slightly older than me. But that peaceful time did not last long. "Emily, is this seat taken?" It was our coworker, David. He didn't seem to like how friendly Emily and I were with each other. David graduated from a prestigious private university and had a strong sense of confidence in his career. He was the same age as me and appeared friendly at first, but occasionally he would throw sharp remarks my way. "Daniel, maybe you could take your time at your last job in that local company, but things don't work that way here. The pace is completely different from the countryside." His words carried an unmistakable undertone of rivalry, and it was clear he wasn't happy about how often Emily and I talked. Whenever the conversation turned to Emily's new project, David's demeanor would grow even more tense. For Emily's new project, I'll give it everything I've got. Let's make it a success. While his words sounded supportive, there was an unmistakable sense of competitiveness and personal interest in Emily behind them. That tension quickly changed the entire mood of our lunch. The project, Emily's first as a manager, involved implementing a business system developed by our company into a client's operations and migrating data from their old system. The old system had been developed by an external vendor based on specifications the client had created, but those specs were now unclear, as the original person in charge had already left the company. To adapt to the changes in their business operations, the client had decided to switch to our company's more versatile system. In the planning phase of the project, our first task was to thoroughly analyze the old system and prepare a rough cost estimate. Due to the lack of clarity in the old system's specifications, Emily's team was scrambling to gather information. They carefully compared the materials provided by the client with the specifications of the new system and worked to define the specific requirements. Eventually, they reached an agreement on the requirements and costs, and the project officially kicked off. David had already been assigned as a member, and with the formal launch, I was added to the project team as well. Once the project began, Emily, David, and I started working on migrating data from the old system to the new one. Initially, Emily had estimated the migration would be a simple data transfer, but once we started, unexpected issues quickly surfaced. Emily, I moved the old system's data into the new system, but on the new screen, it's throwing errors and won't move to the next step. It looks like there are way more issues with the data than we expected. David, who was in charge of data migration and testing on the new system, reported this to Emily. Really? The sample data they gave us didn't have that many issues. Can you double-check if there's a problem with the migration script? David confidently pointed to his monitor and responded calmly. His tone carried a strong sense of certainty in his own assessment. Of course, I checked it multiple times. Look, the data from the old system contained multiple issues. Fields that were supposed to contain numbers had letters, and required fields were sometimes left blank, so these kinds of problems prevented the new system from functioning properly. The sample data Emily received during the estimation phase contained almost no error-inducing entries, so she had proceeded with the project feeling reassured. But in reality, there were tens of thousands of records to be migrated, and each error type needed to be identified and handled accordingly. It could be said that her inexperience had caused her to overlook that factor during estimation. At this rate, we might not finish in time. The tremble in her voice as she quietly said that stuck with me. The most reliable way to solve the problem was to input each record manually into the new system's interface and decide how to handle errors case by case. However, entering tens of thousands of records manually would take an enormous amount of time and drastically impact the project's schedule. Faced with this situation, Emily explained during the next meeting with the client that the issue fell outside the original estimate and requested a discussion. But the client flatly rejected it. If you didn't recognize the issue during estimation, that's your responsibility. Our budget is already set, and we're not paying any more. Emily was clearly shaken by those words. She stressed that the data flaws were unexpected and that additional resources were essential to resolve them, but the client remained unmoved. After the meeting, the usual brightness was gone from her face, and it was clear she felt lost. Still, after finishing her report to Michael, she immediately gathered the project's core members and began speaking with determination. After discussing with Michael, we've decided to move forward with the project. The schedule will be extremely tight, but our first step is to clean the data and solve each issue one by one. Looking over the timeline, she reviewed each task with us in detail. Every task was packed in, and there was no room for even the slightest delay. She held her head in her hands, repeatedly murmuring, "What should I do?" For the project to get back on track, some major improvement was clearly needed. It was obvious that finding that solution would become our biggest challenge moving forward. At this rate, not only the project, but also Emily's career could be seriously affected. I strongly felt that I had to do something to prevent that from happening. In that moment, I made up my mind. I knew I had to do something to support her. I walked over to her and gently spoke. Emily, do you have a moment? She looked a little surprised. I think there are parts of this project we could automate. At my previous job, I worked on streamlining operations using RPA. If you're open to it, maybe we could try using that knowledge to automate part of this project. There was a hint of surprise on her face, but I could also tell she had some questions. Automation? That would be great if it's possible. But what is RPA exactly? To answer her question, I began explaining the concept in a bit more technical detail. RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. To put it simply, it's a technology that allows software to perform repetitive tasks on a computer that a human would normally do. For example, it can automate routine, repetitive tasks like data entry and file transfers. If we implement this, we could cut down on manual work and significantly speed up the project. Nodding with interest, she asked for more specifics. What kind of processes could we automate exactly? From there, I began explaining in detail which processes could be automated and how we would implement them. I carefully walked through each task we could automate, how much time we could save, and how the RPA tools could be integrated into the project. Seeing the spark in her eyes, I felt that my proposal might actually help ease some of her burden. Using this technology to support her and the team felt like a real opportunity for me to contribute to the company. But more than that, I truly hoped it would lead to the success of her project and relieve her of some of that heavy pressure. After we implemented the RPA technology I had suggested, things started changing rapidly. We identified the processes suitable for automation and configured the software to handle each task, and the whole team began to feel the impact. The first process we automated was data entry. With that automated, several hours of daily manual work could now be completed in seconds. For entries that triggered errors, the system output both the input data and the corresponding error message. The erroneous data was then reviewed and addressed by the client based on the error message, after which it was automatically re-registered. Next, we tackled the automation of internal report preparation. To manage the project internally, we needed to submit weekly progress reports to Michael and the quality assurance team, containing key updates. This report included the total number of issues and how many had been resolved to assess overall project risk. It also tracked discrepancies between the initial estimates and the actual time worked, which was critical for managing labor costs and adjusting team assignments. Previously, transferring this data from the issue tracking system and attendance system into the report had been done manually. Previously, the number of issues from the issue management system and the attendance data from the timekeeping system had to be manually transferred into the report, but by using RPA, the data is now automatically entered into designated fields based on predefined conditions, significantly reducing both the time required and the risk of transcription errors. These improvements helped get the project back on track, nearly restoring it to the original schedule. Of course, not everything was solved overnight, but the team could now feel real progress. As the project regained momentum, team morale noticeably improved. The office, which had once been filled with a heavy atmosphere, has now become a lively space for active discussion, with team members regularly offering enthusiastic suggestions. Seeing that, I felt a growing sense of pride in being part of this team. More than anything, the gratitude and trust Emily began to show me became a huge source of joy. One day, after reviewing the project's progress in a meeting, she publicly acknowledged my efforts in front of the whole team. Thanks to Daniel, our project has taken a major step forward. With the introduction of RPA, we've achieved significant efficiency gains. Daniel, thank you. We're almost to the finish line. Let's keep giving it our best, everyone. Her words left me feeling humbled. But when I saw the sincere appreciation in her eyes, I felt a deep, unquestionable sense of satisfaction for being part of this project and for having supported her. As the project ran more smoothly and the team united around a shared purpose, my sense of fulfillment only deepened. Every day reminded me of what true teamwork meant. Emily even began asking, "Do you think this part could be automated with RPA too?" As I answered her questions, I started to feel a quiet excitement, like our relationship was growing into something more than just coworkers. However, that same progress began to stir a sense of anxiety in David. Seeing Emily and me together so often seemed to make him feel like his place on the team was at risk. He also tried to contribute by offering technical suggestions, but his ideas didn't quite match the impact of mine. His suggestions weren't bad, but because my ideas were already deeply integrated into the project, his didn't stand out. During meetings, the disappointment on his face was impossible to miss. He often sighed heavily, staring at his laptop screen in frustration. Even so, he refused to give up and kept reworking new ideas again and again. But each time, his expression grew more conflicted. One day, while the project was underway, David and I happened to be the only two working overtime. He spoke as he poured himself a cup of coffee, looking a bit tired. "Daniel, I think I might have gotten worked up over something small. Seeing how well things were going between you and Emily, I guess I started to feel uneasy." His voice carried a hint of regret. I simply responded, "It's all right. Competing is part of the job." And I added that working together would be essential for the success of our next project. That night, the two of us stayed late, working together to refine one of his proposals. This time, his attitude didn't come from anxiety, and it came from a clear sense of purpose and a shared goal. By the time we neared the final stages of the project, we were completely in sync. David offered ideas actively, and I respected and welcomed them. As a result, the project was a great success, and several of his proposals were adopted and contributed significantly to our achievements. When the project successfully wrapped up, the entire team gathered for a celebration. The atmosphere was full of energy, with everyone recognizing and appreciating each other's efforts and success. At that gathering, David, usually full of confidence, spoke to me, a bit tipsy and more candid than usual. "Daniel, I really thought I could outdo you, but I couldn't. Toward the end, you were the one helping me out. It was frustrating, but I've got to admit I lost. Still, I hope we can keep working together." His words came with a smile, and I was genuinely happy to hear them. It was the moment when a real friendship began to form between us. It was the start of a true bond built through the project. Just then, Emily walked over. Sensing the moment, David quietly moved to another table. Emily began to speak. "Daniel, you really saved me. When the client told us they wouldn't pay anything more, I honestly had no idea what to do. I kept telling myself I had to handle it as the manager, but deep down, I didn't have a way out. I was ready to step down if it came to that. Thank you for standing by me." "No need to thank me. I just wanted to support you after seeing how hard you were working. Besides, you really remind me of someone I've always looked up to." Emily looked surprised at my words. "Ha!" A little embarrassed, I explained who I was referring to. "She's an older cousin. She was always kind, caring, and had the most beautiful smile. When I was a kid, I was convinced I was going to marry her. I cried all day when she got married." Listening to my story, Emily smiled with curiosity. "Wow, someone you looked up to, huh? So does that mean you admire me too?" She grinned teasingly. "Of course." Emily blushed slightly and smiled. The following week, I was called in by the department manager. The automation we implemented in the project had been well received within the company, and there was now interest in expanding those improvements to other departments. In fact, there was already a department that handled RPA, but their focus had been on selling and deploying it for clients, not on using it internally. As a result, leadership had asked to explore internal efficiency improvements, and it was decided that I would work with the RPA department manager to lead the effort. I was officially appointed as the leader of this internal process improvement project. To be honest, the sudden promotion was unexpected, but I felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that my efforts had been recognized. With high expectations and a strong sense of responsibility, I felt excited for this new role. Since the previous project had just wrapped up, I immediately began preparations for the internal initiative the next day. I gave a detailed explanation of what we had done on Emily's project to the executives, the RPA team manager, and other stakeholders, and we began discussing which departments to target next. Until then, I had been working at the desk next to Emily, but for this new project, I had to relocate. That's when David came over and spoke to me. "Daniel, I heard the news. They're making you a project lead already? That's incredible, especially since you just joined. We need to celebrate. How about tonight? Let's invite Emily too." David also called out to Emily at the next desk, and she agreed cheerfully. "Sure, we definitely need to celebrate. I'm in if Daniel is." And so, the three of us ended up going out for drinks that evening. At a lively corner of a bar during the evening rush, we took our seats and quickly received our first round of beers. David raised his glass for a quick toast. "To Daniel's promotion, cheers." "Cheers." Our beer glasses clinked softly, and the meal began in a relaxed and cheerful atmosphere. Naturally, the conversation shifted toward my new role and the success of the previous project. "Daniel, being a project leader sounds tough, but you're excited, right?" I replied with a smile. "Yeah, it's definitely a lot of pressure, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's a new challenge." Emily nodded, clearly impressed by my positive attitude. "You'll do just fine. Your automation idea was such a huge help. Honestly, I think you'll do much better than someone like me." I quickly responded with humility and praised Emily's contribution. "It was because of the way you built the team. Everyone seemed to really enjoy their work in the second half. I learned a lot from you." David strongly agreed and added to the conversation. "Yeah, I think it was thanks to you too, Emily. By the way, Daniel, so you used RPA at your last job. I always wondered why you weren't placed in the RPA department." I began to share more about my background. "I was doing programming at my last job. One day, I was put in charge of RPA, and that experience is what's helping me now. At the time, the company wanted to make RPA a central focus, but when the president changed, that plan was scrapped. In the end, we only looked into it internally and never made any client proposals. I couldn't really connect with the new leadership, and that's what made me decide to change jobs. Since I had no formal RPA results, I couldn't include it on my RSUM, but I had a blog and a video channel where I explained programming. The viewership wasn't huge, but one of the recruiters here liked what they saw, and that's what got me this job." Both of them listened with genuine interest. When I finished, David responded with admiration. "I see. So that's why you know so much about RPA." As we continued drinking, David suddenly stood up. "Ah, I need to hit the restroom." Once he left, it was just Emily and me. Compared to the surrounding noise, our little space suddenly felt quiet, and I spoke to her a little nervously. "Emily, thank you for everything while we were desk neighbors. I was really anxious after joining the company, but having you next to me and helping me out, it meant a lot." She looked a little surprised at first, but then her expression softened into a warm smile. "That's not true. You helped me just as much, Daniel. I really thought we'd keep working together, so I'm honestly a little sad that you're moving." Her words made my heart race. Not wanting to miss the moment, I summoned the courage to speak. "Emily, if you're up for it, would you like to have dinner sometime outside of work? I'd love to talk more like we are now." She looked momentarily surprised, but then smiled kindly. "Is it because I remind you of that cousin you admired?" I shook my head and answered clearly. "No, it's because you're you, Emily." "Thank you. I'd really like that. There's so much more I'd like to talk to you about too." Just then, David returned. "Looks like you two are deep in conversation." Emily and I exchanged a glance and smiled. That night, Emily and I exchanged contact information, and we decided to start dating. Even I was a little surprised at how quickly things progressed. Once our relationship became known in the office, we received warm support from our coworkers. David, in particular, had changed. He congratulated us sincerely and said, "Daniel, Emily, congratulations. I'll admit I'm a little jealous, but you two have my full support." His words were free from competition or envy, and they were filled with genuine friendship. I was deeply grateful for the change in his attitude. That shift in David helped strengthen the bond between the three of us even further. I felt confident that from now on, we would support each other both in work and in life as true friends. The project's success had brought us more than just professional results. It gave us something far deeper, and I truly believe that. Months passed since Emily and I began dating, and our relationship continued to grow. Our lives were filled with support and good fortune, and we naturally found ourselves moving toward marriage. Though we worked in different departments, being in the same company gave us many chances to see each other's professional sides, which deepened our trust and understanding. Through our respective roles at work, we came to appreciate each other's talents and efforts, and that made our bond even stronger. One evening, while relaxing at home, we casually began talking about our future together. "Emily, things have been going so well between us. I've been thinking maybe it's time we start talking about marriage. What do you think?" When I asked her that, she smiled warmly and said, "I've been thinking the same thing." In that moment, it felt like the whole room filled with a gentle warmth. On our wedding day, the ceremony was held in a small church, surrounded by family and close friends, under the soft sunlight of a warm spring day. As we held hands during the ceremony, I found myself thinking of everyone we had met along the way, filled with gratitude. I realized again how every fateful encounter and moment we had shared had shaped the life we now have. Looking back, it's clear that the struggles and uncertainties of the past only make the happiness we feel today shine even brighter. With deep gratitude for meeting Emily and for all the support from those around us, we will continue walking forward together. No matter what the future holds, I truly believe we can overcome it side by side. This is the beginning of our new life together.